So we'd like to welcome you to this meeting of the Finance and Business Support Committee of Thursday, the 1st of August. Just before we go into anything else, I'm just going to hand over to our Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to acknowledge the very sad passing of a council employee this week, Penny Hart. And Penny had been with us for 29 years in our customer service area. A very popular member of staff, did a wonderful job, particularly in the area of our relationship with the building community. In fact, initially she started with us in 1990 and right through to 2008. Our building, each of our departments had their own customer services person before we had an overall customer services department. So she's been working in that business relationship area for many, many years, and I know they are as sad as we are at Penny's sad passing. So I just want to acknowledge her wonderful contribution to our counselling community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Now I'll just ask if we could all stand, please, for a moment's silence. Thank you. Okay, we'd like to welcome councillors, mayor, staff and media. Call for apologies. We have two, Councillor Price and Councillor Rawlinson. Would someone please like to move that we accept those apologies? Councillor Urquhart and Councillor Bell. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you. Extraordinary business. I know of none. Is there any? No. Declarations of interest. No. Okay. Confirmation of the minutes. Page 1. Does anyone have any alterations or amendments? Page 2. 3. Mr. Brake.
Through Mr. Chairman, on page 2, there was a under 6.4, officers were to come back with a report including Reserve Board operation expenditure, vested assets and debtors. That has been done, but unfortunately it didn't go out with your agenda through miscommunication. So instead of tabling it, what I'll do is I'll get it out to you tomorrow, and we can discuss it at the next meeting. So rather than just plonk it on the table in front of you now, I'll get it out to you, but it has been done. I've got a couple of pages sitting here of it, so I'll get that out to you separately. But it hasn't been overlooked, but again, I apologise for not getting it to you as part of this agenda.
Thank you for that. Okay, page 3. 4. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's not a change to the minutes, but it is an item I don't see covered in today's agenda. That is the survey results that are mentioned under 6.5.6. I'm wondering when and how that will be reported back to Council, if at all.
In the activity report area, we'll deal with that there if you like under the reserve boards, and then it can, yep, thank you. Any alterations there on page 4 and page 5? If not, does someone like to move, please? Councillor Brahm. Happy to move, and Councillor Bell has seconded.
Thank you.
I keep missing you, Councillor, sorry. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Okay. Now we're on page 6, 5.1, the Emergency Relief Fund. You have all read the report there that's in front of you. We have staff here to answer any questions you may have. Does anyone have any questions of the report? Councillor Lovett.
When you establishing this fund, are you going to put a time limit on a disaster when it will be wrapped up, so it's not continuing on for years after? Or
Through the chair, so the intention is that the executive committee would determine criteria specific to each disaster or event. So yes, there would need to be a time limit. The other alternative is to establish a fund, I guess it would stay open, but that would be a financial hardship fund, which wouldn't be achieving what we're trying to do with this type of fund.
Supplementary with that, I quite like this idea of a fund, but I don't want it to be turning into a welfare fund, and I think we have to be careful with that because we haven't got the experience or the expertise to manage that beyond a direct emergency. To me, this fund is, we should be able to access in a time of emergency for setting up welfare centres and bits and pieces. We shouldn't be managing monies from it later on because we haven't got that expertise to give it out to persons or groups, I don't think. And that's what, concerns me a little bit.
Just for clarification though, there is no fund. It will be money that may be gifted after an event, and then the executive committee will meet to work out how best to deal with that.
That's where I'm sort of was coming from at that angle. Are we, should it go into a mayoral fund or something where a discretionary fund? Because there's a lot of agencies out that do this work and that we're not qualified to carry on after an exact emergency.
Through the chair, so the intention is that it is only for disaster relief or emergencies, not as a hardship fund for anyone to apply to. It would be opened and closed after a certain date and then open and closed for the next event. And there would be criteria developed by the executive committee, and that would obviously need to think about what type of people would be worthy of receiving distributions from the fund. It's also only for the purpose of donations, so there would be no rating impact. Just basically what this does is set up a process for council to accept donations and distribute donations in the event of an emergency.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I congratulate the staff on the report. I thank them for their recommendation and I would be happy to move.
We just have a question here from Councillor Wilson.
I've got a question. Where does this fund sit in relation to the Rural Support Trust?
Councillor Reveley?
Totally independent. Rural Support Trust get money from all sorts of circles for doing all sorts. I would say this is totally independent of that. No, I don't think Rural Support would want to handle public money on a non-specific base. All the money Rural Support get from donations is usually targeted at something or for something.
And it may be the disaster is more of an urban than a rural one anyway. We don't know. Any further questions? If not, I'll revert back to the Mayor for the... Happy to...
As stated, happy to move. Thank you.
Seconding Councillor Urquhart. Any debate? If not, I'll put the motion 5.1.2 as written. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Thank you. (5.2) on page 11, the local government funding and financing. You have the report there and have all read it. Are there any questions of staff on the report? No. Rachel.
Through the chair, so I've also provided everyone with a copy of the SOLGIM draft submission, which just contains the recommendations. I will email out a full copy of that document in advance of the meeting next week to discuss council submission.
Thank you. So if there's no questions, would someone like to move that we receive this report? Councillor Brown, Councillor Bell. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Can I have a mover, please, that we accept the activity reports? Councillor Wilson, Councillor Brown. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. 6.1, Gordon, information systems. A lot of work going on in there. So anything you would like to add to your report, Gordon?
Not specifically, just that as you'll read, there's activity across the whole of the department, from general improvements, introductions of new process. We've delivered the GIS solution replacement. There's work still going on around mop-up of that. Some other works of completion have been regarding our server storage. Although it hasn't said there, to the majority of the organisation, the version Microsoft Office version has been upgraded to 2016.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Brown.
Just one question, it's probably a silly one. Version upgrade to 2016, it's 3 years ago. I suppose it's a silly question.
Through the chair, it's not a silly question. Yes, you're quite right. 2016 was 3 years ago. Office 2019 has been released, but I guess we take a considered approach really on that, and wait for, generally with software releases there is a follow-up. Those who are brave and take it may reap the benefits, but also will suffer some of the issues that come out with new software. The other thing that we have to take consideration is integrations and how those software will work with other pieces of solutions that we have here at Council. So yes, I accept that we are 3 years behind, but we're in line with policy of being at least no more than one version back. So.
Thank you for that. Any further questions? Thank you, Gordon. 6.2, strategy and policy. Welcome, Tony, again. Yeah, are there any questions of Tony there? The Heritage Grants, I believe, open today, is that correct? And close on the last day of this month, so. Any questions at all? Anything else you would like to add there, Tony? Councillor Revley?
I just wondering why we've got the annual report coming out, the completion date is outside this present council's time.
Thank you. Through the Chair, that's a legislative date. So we work towards the adoption of the annual report by the 31st of October, which is a requirement under the LGA.
No further questions? Great, thank you. 6.2.2, external submissions. Tony again, so any questions there? No? Okay. 6.2.3, welcoming communities update.
Excellent. I'll take it as read. However, happy to answer any questions. But this was a surprising bonus that came in across our email 2 weeks ago. So this additional funding will be very welcome for this year's delivery of the programme.
Do you just want to introduce Janice?
Absolutely. So as of Monday this week, the strategy and policy team got back up to full strength with the arrival of Janice Mackay, standing at the back of the room. And she is our new Welcoming Communities Advisor for the next 12 months.
Councillor Wilson.
Yes. Back to 6.2.2, the Ministry of Transport Road to Zero road safety strategy. I see an interesting thing in yesterday's news that the government is pushing ahead with the road safety, what they want to do between Christchurch and Ashburton, but the business case has not even been prepared. It's ironic we prepare business cases for Tynwald, Walnut Avenue continually and they're rejected. And here they're going to start building something they haven't even got a business case for. So, I mean, it's pretty ironic. We know who's pushing NZTA from behind, don't we?
Okay. Is So any further questions there on welcoming communities? Madam Mayor.
Sorry, Mr Chairman, I just wanted to ask a question to Councillor Wilson's point about the submission for a new road safety strategy, and I'm wondering, because we have a meeting on the 6th of August of the Road Safety Committee, if that committee will be involved in the submission.
Thank you, through the chair. So, long story short, yes, the Road Safety Committee will be discussing the road safety strategy. I've got a typo here in the process, I've just noticed, apologies. Council's roading team are contributing to the Canterbury Regional Transport Committee's submission to the road safety strategy, and I had put the road safety working group. But certainly the road safety working group on Tuesday from Council will be discussing the road safety strategy, and then the regional submission that is being drafted at the moment, that will be circulated to Council next week, and I think that's a topic of discussion at next Thursday's Regional Transport Committee. The road safety team and the roading engineers, we've had a discussion with them about whether there's any value in submitting an independent submission to that, and they're very comfortable with where the regional approach is sitting at this point in time, and don't feel that as an organisation we would have anything additional to add.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tony, $20,000, is there a reason for it that we're getting it? Or are we that good or that bad? Or what is the reason behind it?
Thank you, through the chair. I certainly don't think it's because we're that good. The $20,000 has been given to every pilot council for the Welcoming Communities program, so it's been $100,000 extra that has come in through Immigration New Zealand. Essentially, they just want to see and give the program the best opportunity possible to get well delivered and for the initiatives to be well undertaken throughout the country. At the Immigration New Zealand forum recently held about welcoming communities, there's certainly an expectation from within their organisation that welcoming communities will go further and wider than just the pilot councils, and there's a paper going to Cabinet next month about that.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, and just following up on Councillor Brahm, Tony, I heard you say the 5 areas were getting 100,000, so 20,000 each. My understanding is our area is co-shared with Selwyn. Are we not passing anything on to Selwyn?
Nothing has been confirmed yet, so Selwyn, essentially we aren't receiving the money tomorrow in a cheque. We have to put a bid through to Immigration New Zealand for approval for that spending of the funds. So that would be a conversation with Selwyn to see if they have any initiatives or programs coming up that they think could be worthy of that funding also.
Thank you. Any further? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. And my question is for this amount, is that 20,000 from the immigration, and the ADC will also come up with 20,000, or it's just a different arrangement?
Thank you, through the chair. No, this is completely independent of the co-funding agreement that we have. So this is over and above that. It's an additional 20,000. As a council, we have funding set aside as well for the development and the implementation of the program.
And this is going to be supplementary to that, and this is going to be shared with the Selwyn District Council.
Yes, there are discussions being held between Immigration New Zealand and Selwyn in terms of their involvement in the Welcoming Communities program, and I certainly couldn't speak for what they plan or their level of involvement with the program going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. No further questions there. So we have our performance measures and targets. Page 18 there, and then page 19. No questions. And page 20. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, about the experience with Canterbury. Very disappointing that they're losing membership. For years I've tried to promote that we give them a substantial donation towards their operating costs, and if I had my way it'd be dollar for dollar, but they still do not match what the council give them in independent income from the people that benefit in this district from tourism. And I see they've dropped 29%. Well, that's unacceptable. To use the eyesight as an excuse is pretty weak.
Thank you. I believe EMC are coming for their quarterly report soon, so you may be able to ask the question. No further questions there? Okay, we'll move on to 6.3, communications. Welcome, Ruben.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
My apologies, Mr Chairman. Could I ask a question at the top of page 20 before we go to 6.3?
Certainly.
And it's in regards to council will provide rental accommodation that meets the specific needs of eligible elderly members of the community. And in the comments, it states that there's one vacant unit, but on page 22, we're told that there are 5 empty units. And I'm wondering if you could just help me understand,
Yes,
please.
I can. At the time that this report was done, there was 1. There are now 5. So we did actually have a discussion around that performance measure and how it's calculated. And I think the agreement was it would actually be over a year's period with how many days the units are occupied, rather than how many units are occupied at any one given date.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Okay, Ruben. Any questions there? Have you got anything you'd like to add at all?
Just one thing that's of significance, just provided a general update on some of the ongoing projects that we're working on, but the last update that I've included for this month's report was the addition of our new digital communications officer, which is going to help us expand and increase our audience in various communication channels. So there's very much an interest and strategy around making sure that we extend our reach and increase our audiences so that we can continue to tell and share the story of the district.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone's been past the, I hate calling it this, the old eyesight building, but that's the one, and seen the screen that's up there and what's playing on it at the moment for the public's information. So it looks really good. So, Councillor Lovett.
I'm just going to ask, on that screen, are you doing sporting, covering the whole board of sporting fixtures, dates, to council information? Is it kind of anything people want to know, or have we got set topics that are going to roll around on it?
Yeah. Currently, the very first project or first campaign that we've decided to put on that mobile digital signage that is currently located at the former eyesight building is simply around the topic of the CBD Streetscape Revitalization Project. We felt that it was important to provide imagery to some of the work that's been done, and it's progressing, and obviously having it located in that general vicinity made sense. With that said, the system that we've implemented or have in place does afford us the ability to provide any kind of content subject matter for our various facilities. So as we look to grow that particular service in other areas, we'll have the ability to do that.
Please, because we kind of need that medium, I think, to keep people informed and people are able to put information in there. That would be good. Yeah, it could become a hub of where people can gather and see what the latest updates are.
We also have a website that's good. Oh, sorry, Mr. Chief Executive.
So just noting from those comments, of course, the council resolution is to remove that building. So while we are highly focused on providing the information to the community, we're simply utilising that site at the moment because it's suitable for this particular communication. It's not going to become the place of permanent communication with the community because the building isn't going to be there. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Through you to Ruben. Ruben, 3 areas that I believe come under your role, but they're not listed on today's report, and I'm wondering if you could just help me understand. Lights. I recall when the LED lights went up, specifically on the town clock, we were told by your predecessor that the pattern would change and the, maybe during different festivals, be it Anzac Day or be it Christmas, there'd be different lights, and that doesn't seem to have changed. Also in regards to flags, I note that they're down at the moment, and I'm wondering what the next one is, and just wondering whether we're on track for Christmas, where we're at with our Christmas decorations.
I can definitely follow up with those 3 items in our next report, and perhaps sooner. I can tell you with confidence that the planning towards the Christmas lights for this year's Nights of Lights festivities is well underway, well planned for in advance, to make sure that that goes without a hitch. The other things, we can definitely provide an update for you.
So
Absolutely.
I think the lights on the clock tower are under open spaces, are they? I think. I'm getting nods from, I had that feeling. But Ruben can check up on that and
We'll
let
be
us.
happy to provide you a more adequate report in the
Yep.
next meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Through the chair, yeah, they were installed by Open Spaces, and I do believe they are just programmable, so it should be quite simple to just program them for different events and different colours and schemes. So, yep.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, just following on from the Chief Executive's comment before about the eyesight building, is there a timeline for its removal yet or not? Is it still being worked on?
It's being worked on in relation to the construction timetable for the redevelopment of the CBD. So it's that piece of work that's impacting on the timing of its removal.
So it could be up to a year away or 2.
No, it'll be less than that.
Less.
Yeah.
Councillor Malcolm.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. Ruben, regards to the digital signage, is this weatherproof for signage, or is it available? Are we available to get weatherproof signage so that it could go outdoors to on a permanent basis?
Yeah, the easy answer is yes. The option is, but it would require different hardware. We currently only have internal signage that has to be indoors and protected.
Thank you.
Okay, no further questions? Thank you, Ruben. Just one question for you. We're live on air here. How's that going? Are we seeing an increasing number in that? Or?
I can definitely provide a full summary report. There is a report coming at the next FABS meeting or council meeting because we are to review the live streaming overall, and we'll provide a brief summary what those numbers are looking like and perhaps several options to consider moving forward. That review date, I think we were on a 6-month trial, and that's coming up here in September, so we'll have that ready for you. I can tell you today that we certainly get a lot more viewers after the live event. I think that's probably just the nature of the timing of the meeting. People might come home later in the evening and catch a replay of it. So certainly our on-demand viewing is a lot higher than our live viewing at this time.
Thank you, that's great. Councillor McMullen.
Thank you. Just a question through the chair. With the new text messaging system, which is great, and I've had a lot of alerts and it's been fantastic, how are you doing the advertising or the marketing for that? Because there's still quite a few people that don't seem to know anything about it. So is it just sort of ongoing through Facebook or?
Yes, we currently do have a couple campaigns that's hitting all publications. We're not doing back-to-back issues, so we're being conscious of the budget that we have to provide that advertising. We're certainly communicating it and advertising it through all of our traditional channels, District Diary being one major one. We have radio ads scheduled throughout the month. The other thing, too, that's important is anytime there is notices or alerts that go out, as you may have seen in the recent weeks, we're always quick to also include the information to stay informed, to stay alert, sign up by texting your postcode to 4196. So there's always this pickup in subscribership when there's an event that's happening, because folks are then reminded of that as well. We do see steady increase in the numbers of subscribers. As the report states, we're closely nearing 2,000 subscribers, which is significantly higher than anything we've had before.
Thank you. There's no further questions. Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you.
Councillors, we move on to item 6.4, your variance report. And first of all, I'll just ask Mr. Brake to tell us why we've got the May one now when we're at where we're at. So, yeah, well, that 6.41 comes after 6.4. Oh, sorry. All right, 6.41, the upgrade. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. So just in regards to the procure to pay project, that did have a date of July 2019, and then it states the completion date for this project has been reset to December 2019. Are we saying we're not on track for the reset?
Through you, Mr Chairman, the original finishing time was a lot earlier. We did run into some difficulty with the supplier actually agreeing the scope and the outcomes. That has been now agreed, so the new timetable is that it will be completed by Christmas. The work actually starts next week.
Thank you for that. Any further questions there? Okay, now we'll move on to our variance report.
Okay, through Mr Chairman, this is a May report. We are getting on a bit, but this was sent out very early. So it was sent out when it was completed, which missed the last Finance and Business Support meeting. That's why we've got a May one. There'll be a June one coming very soon, but we've held off doing the June one till we've got as much of the end of year financials in. So the June report you'll get very shortly. There'll be a couple of things outstanding from it, and one will be the depreciation and asset calculations. That's the last thing to do. But at the moment, we've put most of the accruals through. There'll be a few outstanding things, but the June report will be coming in the next week.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Just in regards to Mr Brake's comments about the assets and the depreciation, we recently had our QVs come in and we've got new rateable values. Do we adjust our assets?
Through Mr Chairman, our infrastructural assets, our roading and our water, our wastewater and solid waste and open spaces, they're revalued every year at the moment under our accounting policy. And our investment properties are revalued as well by an independent valuer, not using QV, but are actually valued for accounting purposes under an accounting standard. The rest of our assets are generally carried at historic cost, less depreciation, book value.
Okay, councillors, we'll move to page 2, which is the income and expenditure summary. Anyone have any questions there? Page 3. Councillor Reveley.
Yeah, why is there no capital income showing on roading? This shows a permanent variance, that's all.
Through Mr Chairman, capital income is generally the loans that are raised to fund capital expenditure. They're done as one of the last transactions in the ledger. So we wait until every bit of all the creditors are in, all the payments have been made to know exactly how much of that loan we actually need to uplift. So when you get the final June report, it'll show how much of that loan we actually have had to uplift. But at the moment, you can see that the expenditure in roading, capital expenditures under the budget at May, so we haven't done our loans yet. So you'll see right through this report that capital income for loans raised usually has not been done yet.
Why does it show a permanent variance? I would imagine permanent will be something shown up as not claimed for the year.
Through Mr Chairman, the capital expenditure for roading says that there is going to be a permanent variance. One of them is the RDR bridge construction, which is going to be carried over to the new year. So if that's not going to be spent in this year, then there will be a permanent variance in the loan funding, which will take place next year rather than this year.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Through you to Mr Brake. Mr Brake, as I look at the vested assets and I see that we got 3.2 million in on a forecast of 2.5, I was optimistic that our vested assets across the whole summary of finances would be positive, but when I look at all of them, and I've looked at drinking water, wastewater, stormwater and rec and community services, we're down 865,000, so we're 85%. So I don't recall that we've done it this way before, that we've had a budget per category and that we've reported it this way. Could you help me understand what the methodology is, why we've got some variances in those different ones?
When we prepare the LTP, we part of the LTP is using an estimated growth factor across the whole of the activities, and that includes trying to estimate future subdivisions across the district and how much value of asset will get given as a result of those subdivisions. So it's a pretty inexact science. We're trying to guess based on population growth and I suppose progress in the district, what they're going to be each year. So generally we would have an estimate for water vested assets, wastewater vested assets and roadings, usually some in open spaces, but it's really out of our control when they turn up. So some years you'll get more, some years you'll get less. They're actually not a cash item of any sort, they're just an asset given to us that we then transfer into our books. So it's a little bit out of our control when they turn up.
Thank you. Any further questions on page 3? 4? 5? 6? 7? And 8? 9? 10? Councillor Revley, page 11.
Righto, this is of concern. We get to the back of this document, you'll see that there's $192,000 of a external loan against Stockwater. I would like to think we, rather than ask questions today that may not be able to be answered, that we get a report on this, because this amount is growing. 2.5 staff here, external staff, and this is growing, and the deficit is growing. So I'm going to move that we have a report back to council or some committee on the reasons and the future outlook for Stockwater's finance.
Mr. Chief Executive, you're happy that we get a report done on the Stockwater with the debt we have, and our deficit seems to keep growing. We're closing Stockwater races, and we're actually going backwards as far as income goes, as opposed to our expenditure. So before the next LTP, we need to get this sorted, really.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if council requests a report on this matter, we are only too happy to provide that.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I'm happy to second Councillor Revley's recommendation. Yeah, just wants that we look into to see where the monies have been spent and why we're not budgeting enough, we're not getting enough income. Just are we overexpending on it? Not sure. So just get in there and have a look and report back to us would be great.
Come back to FABS or service delivery or council?
We've asked for it here, so probably should come back
Back here, okay, back to finance and business support. Any councillors like to comment on that? So you've moved that, you get that report done, Councillor Revley, been seconded by Councillor Brown. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. Now, are there any further questions there on page 11? 12? 13? 14? 15?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm back
Sorry.
at page 14. And I just wanted to mention the income for the recreation facilities and services. Wonderful that we're ahead on our income. It's great. And also we're down on our expenditure, so exciting times.
Yep.
Long may it continue.
Thank you. Okay. Page 15. 16. 17. Oh, sorry, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So at the last meeting, I mentioned some confusion with the Mount Somers Reserve Board in regards to the 200,000 that had been budgeted for them for capital expenditure. After attending a couple of the Reserve Board meetings, their primary concern in not drawing down those funds is they believe that that will go to their operating balance. Now, Mr. Brake, we discussed it at the last meeting. That is not the case, is it? And has that been communicated back to them? You were not at the last meeting, but we discussed it in your absence.
Through Mr. Chairman, I'll have to check that up or whether it's been communicated to them. Okay. Can I actually just point out though on page 15 that under memorial halls, the no permanent variance should be yes. And that's because we've discovered that in that budget, the depreciation was budgeted at twice what it should have been. It's doesn't have any effect really 'cause it's not cash, so it doesn't have any budgeting effect, but it is overstated. So that variance that says no under the memorial halls is likely to be yes.
Which you'll pick up in that next report.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. Thank you, Councillor Revley.
Just probably for the Mount Somers one, know a bit about this one. That budget of 200,000 was the Mount Somers Reserve Board budget. Matters beyond their control is why this won't happen. There's probably 80 to 90,000 not coming in from other sources from a reason which we'll deal with later. So,
Okay.
a lot of that looks like it'll have to be canned.
Thank you. Page 17. 18. 19. 20. 21. 22. Mr. Brake.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, just to make a comment on the top of page 22 under council with a 616 favourable variance. My comment in here is that is not going to be the level of variance at the end of the year. It is going to reduce because we have needed to shift the way we budgeted some of the salary and wages cost. We changed it, so the budget put it here, but some of the actual salary and wages costs ended up at the old cost centres. We've transferred it. That variance now is about 290,000. So it is coming down. There will be a variance at the end of the year, but it won't be anywhere near the 600. It'll be closer to 250,000.
Thank you for that. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in regards to the Youth Council and the unfavourable 5,800, just wondering what responsibility we're putting back on the actual Youth Council to stay within budget. Is it reported at each meeting what their budget is? Are they aware of what it is?
Can I just ask, Councillor Lovett, you're on that and go attend their meetings?
They get a finance report every meeting, and so they know what's there, but I just kind of, wonder, because we've got a whole new young youth council, and I really don't think they've got a handle on the finances and, some of their ideas. And I know they've got this this event coming up on Saturday night, and they're trying to sell tickets, and I've just got a few question marks.
So while you have the opportunity and they're trying to sell tickets, here's your chance. Tell us about it.
It's the at the event centre on Saturday night. They're having a film evening on New Zealand short films, and I think it's $24 to come in to it, and they're trying to raise some money to go towards Bite Night, which has been held at the event centre later on, and they need these funds to have all these activities going, and we just want everybody to go along, mums and dads and the youth, to see the films this night and enjoy it.
Thank you.
Then we'll be
Councillor Bell.
In addition to that as well, it looks good that the children or the students are fundraising and they're not just relying on the funding that has been granted to them.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Revley.
Yeah, I'm in surface water, why zone committee and surface water strategy seem to have a big variance. What's the tie-up between surface water and zone committee? On page 22. Our surface water strategy, nothing to do with the zone committee.
We shall ask before we get our final report for the end of year that you have an answer included in that with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further questions on page 22? 23? 24? Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I didn't go back and check last year's variances, but in regards to animal control, it was my recollection we were in a similar situation last year, that the budget and income felt as though it was too high as well. I'm wondering if we've remedied that for the 2019-20 year.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I can't remember last year's figures, but I'm pretty sure they were worse than this. And then this year the fees have gone up. So we're hoping that this unfavourable variance will reduce as a consequence.
Okay, thank you. Page 25. 26. 27. 28. 29. 30. Just question under net debt and borrowings, looking at our long-term plan and what we've got programmed, and we made a significant change just recently to our long-term plan to increase our borrowing by 50 odd million for our fantastic new building and library complex. Oh, 30 million. Yeah, we increased it by 30 to 50 million. So, yes, true. So, but also within the next financial year, we start looking at adding our extension to EA networks and those sorts of things. So, at what stage do we start looking at all that and checking that we're still all okay with our debt levels and comfortable with where we're going?
Through me, Mr. Chairman, your amended LTP is quite different to your original LTP. You can look at that at any time. Normally, we would look at the timing of that project when we did the next annual plan next year. But there is a money set aside in the current year to start doing the design of the extension of that pool. I think it's $100,000 put aside for this current year. So really, if there may be a case for, instead of waiting for the annual plan, to actually get that timing of that project reviewed now, or you may be prepared to spend the $100,000 this year, but look at the timing of when you actually do the build at the annual plan time. So you have the two options.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I think it probably does need to be reviewed, because when we went out with the LTP, we didn't expect a $52 million library and admin building, which we are now going to do. When we were looking at extending the pool down at the EA network, so about $5 million, I think, was sort of put in. Was it year 3, year 4, whatever? Year 3. And you start that work this year. So, and getting some figures through at the service delivery meeting of last week, I think it was, where the actual numbers of the pool are down a wee bit at the moment. So we probably need to have a look at that and just see if there is a need to extend it, and just re-look at the project before we start it, I think, and probably sooner rather than later.
So, any other comments on that around the table at all? Councillor Lovett.
I would be in totally agreeance of re-looking at that, because yeah, I'm concerned about the debt levels, and I think we need to maybe stagger that one out another year or two, just to even things out a little bit.
So I'm just going to seek some guidance here, Mr. Breaker.
Mr. Chairman, we can prepare a report and come back to you looking at the business case again of that project and the timing issues and whether
and its impact upon
its impact on debt and whether it can be extended and what the impact of extending that time frame out is.
Thank you. Madam Mayor?
I'm actually on page 32 if you're ready for that, Mr.
Okay, so
Chairman.
everyone's happy that we're going to get a report on that, so at this stage, nothing changes. So, okay, 31 and now 32. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, someone once told me that if you look after the penny, the pounds look after themselves. And as I look at the pennies of 10,000 for APL property contract advance, my understanding is that deal is over, and I was expecting that money to be returned.
Through Mr. Chairman, it was my expectation that we should have it too, so I'll need to follow up on whether we actually have had it in the last month or where that's at.
Okay, and also just below that, EMC assets investments.
Through Mr. Chairman, I pulled the EMC file out the other day to have a look at what I actually did with that, how that 95 arrived, and I'm going to take some accounting advice from someone on how we actually get rid of it. If we're going to try and write it off, what the book entries for that actually are, because I'm a bit unclear myself, so I'll take some advice on that.
Thank you. Councillor Urquhart.
Yeah, just a query. I'm probably a wee bit ahead of time here because this is the May report, but the term deposits, I see there's 2 in June and 1 in August. Those interest rates slowly going down, I suppose, as you renew them.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the June, most of those June deposits were not renewed. They were just bought back in lieu of keeping our borrowing lower. So we actually did not renew most of those investments.
Any further questions there on page 32? 33. 34. And there is no more. Okay.
We missed
Councillor
one-
Wilson.
We missed a section on,
What page have you got there?
talking about reserve boards. Oh, no, you're right, it's in the other agenda.
It's in the other, yes. Thank you. Okay, we move on to item 6.5, commercial property. Colin's going to... Welcome, Colin. Does anyone have any questions there of Colin? Our elderly persons housing, any more interest in our empty units there that are available to be let?
Through Mr. Chair, the inquiries that we're getting are for double units, so that's sort of a double bed type size, so we don't have any of those around, so we're just meeting whatever the demand is, and if they're available, then they're available.
Okay.
If the people don't want single ones, then we can't
No.
do anything really.
No, thank you. Councillor Wilson, your light's just gone off,
Yes.
sorry.
The Linford Ealing Reserve Boards, at the past meeting, Linford have decided to disband and left the building over to the council to decide what they wanted to do with it. There has been an inquiry from somebody to use it as a heritage building off the site. So at this stage, it's just opening negotiations. And my inquiry is, can they go for a heritage grant to preserve that building if they shift it off the site? Does that cover that?
If it's a listed building, that is there, it needs to be listed under the heritage building. So, yeah, and I don't think it will be. That get one of our heritage grants, it does need to be a listed building. Councillor Everly.
Yeah, I'm on the business estate. Has any estimate been made of the cost to do stage 2 and 3, and will that be just loan funded?
Mr. Chair, we're just doing the engineer's design on that, so we should have that in the next 2 or 3 months, as far as the work that's necessary for that. Whether or not it's loan funded, Mr. Brake might be able to answer that question.
Through Mr. Chairman, yes, it will be.
Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to ask about the Linford. That probably needs to be taken off that because it's been dealt with, but the only thing remaining from that is a notice board, or a board of some description put on the site to acknowledge the past, the school and the hall. They did ask for that in the final minutes of that meeting. And you're just wondering, how that's going to be dealt with.
Is there an issue around if we just drop it off, suddenly if this inquiry doesn't go ahead to move the building, do we just leave an abandoned building on there? So I think we'd need to make a decision around what happens with that building in that scenario.
Okay. And we still haven't heard from Ealing either. Just no response down there, but I think we need to look at that whole reserve that paddock on the side of the road in a different aspect going forward.
Councillor Brown.
Just under the elderly person's housing, and there's a comment there that says that the one unit is not suitable to be relet. So what happens to it? Does it just sit there? Do you demolish it, or what do you do with it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, it's part of, there's two in that group there, so it won't meet the minimum standards under the Residential Tenancy Act now. So if we could rent it out, but we'll be breaching the Act, and therefore we could be liable to be taken to the Tenancy Tribunal, and we don't want to put ourselves at risk, so we're best off just leaving it. And then you'll be aware that we are looking at a whole strategy around elderly housing, which is currently in preparation. So that will form, what we're doing with these units, that will form part of it. But yeah, there's several units there where we don't really want to spend the money until we've decided what we're actually going to do.
What sort of date are you working to, Colin, to bring us that report?
It'll be in the next couple of months, I imagine. So we've got a workshop next month, but it'll be after that date because there's a lot of work for that.
Yeah, my question is regards to the Mona Square. You might have just covered it, but are we looking at pulling down some of those units to replace?
It's Mona Square that I'm actually...
Your light's just gone off, Colin, sorry.
Sorry, it's Mona Square that I'm actually just talking about now. And we haven't made any decisions about what we're doing. So I'll present all the information to the council, and then the council can make up their mind as to exactly what they want to do long term.
As you understand, councillors, there's a reasonable amount of significance around that, so... Any further questions there of commercial property? Okay, 6.6, Audit and Risk Subcommittee. Yes, and there are no recommendations there with that one. Would someone like to move that we receive those audit and risk minutes? Councillor Brahm, Councillor Bell, all those in favour, please say aye. Carried, thank you. Airport Authority, page 26. There is a recommendation there. Councillor Malcolm.
Yeah, I'll move that those be accepted, please. Moved into.
Yep, thank you.
Confirmed.
And seconded by Councillor Urquhart. So we're going to receive those minutes. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Now we have the recommendation. Going to move that to Councillor Malcolm.
I'll move the recommendation as said.
And Councillor Urquhart, you're going to second that. Any questions, debate? Madam Mayor?
Are you taking questions on the recommendation or the wider minutes?
No, on the recommendation.
No, I'll be supporting. I think it's a great time that we review what we're doing at the airport, and as the airport authority, it's really important that we have a plan and a clear vision, so I'll be supporting the recommendation.
Thank you. Any further debate or questions? Not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Did you have a question you wanted on the minutes, Madam Mayor?
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman. So in regards to the minutes, I attended the meeting, and I recall there was also discussion around the recent membership of the Ashburton Airport Authority to the New Zealand Airport Association, but I didn't see that reflected in there. And also, just a point of clarification on 5.1, the Health and Safety Committee. Just wanted to be quite clear, it is an officer who is representing council at the committee, is that correct?
Well, I think we moved that at the last meeting, who our representative was going to be at the...
Yes, but again, I didn't see it in the minutes.
We
Under
moved it...
5.1.
Yeah, might have been the meeting because we moved it at the last Finance and Business Support meeting, who that was going to be, so I think that was the minutes previous. Yep,
Timing is everything, Mr Chairman.
thank you. Councillor Brown.
Just on the airport, page 27, Jet A fuel, A1 fuel, we talked about landing fees of $5 and whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter, but because you've got the RD Petroleum people supplying the fuel, can a surcharge be put on that fuel to cover the landing fees? Is that something that should be investigated?
Colin.
Through you, Mr Chairman, we had a meeting with RD Petroleum this week, and the existing fuel tanks are reaching their useful life, so they're looking at relocating them. So part of that will be a lease document that we have with them, and we are looking at how we charge that lease. So is there, it's quite common if you have these fuel stop places that you have either a base rental, and then every litre we would get 1 cent or 2 cents or whatever it is, and it's just added on to the cost of the fuel, and we would recover that back. The other one is that other way is just a straight lease to the RD Petroleum, which means that it doesn't matter how much fuel they are expending, the lease fee is the lease fee.
Yeah, that's probably not what I'm getting at. It's the aeroplane coming and using the airfield, paying for the landing. And I think there's you can do it voluntary at the moment by putting your $5 into the whatever, and some pay it and some don't. But if there's a levy put on the fuel that they put in when they fill their aeroplanes up, they're all paying it. Whether they like it or not, the bigger the plane, the more fuel, the more they would pay. That's where I'm coming from.
Through Mr Chair, that's correct. What you'll find now is we haven't got that jet fuel out there at the moment, so shortly there will be at least 3 lots of fuel out there. So there's going to be normal petrol. Some planes are running on that at the moment. Some are running on the jet fuel and whatever the other avgas is. One of them they're phasing out because it's got lead in it, and you're correct. The only thing we need to be careful about landing fees is that there's a considerable amount of work that's taken place out there from volunteers who belong to the Aero Club and own those various hangars out there, and we don't want to jeopardise the relationship that we have by them just trying to get $2 when per landing when they're spending thousands of dollars out there in volunteer time.
Yeah, understand that, and they do a lot of good work out there, but the general ratepayer does top up out there as well. The general ratepayer does.
Councillor Malcolm.
I just wonder how that would work with the planes that land and don't get fuel.
That's it.
Right, they come in and they use the toilet. Right, we're probably going to put a new toilet up for them shortly.
You missed $5 basically in that
Okay.
scenario.
But anyhow, so be it.
Any further questions there? Move on to reserve and memorial halls. Now, Madam Mayor, I believe you had a question on...
Oh, well, just before we do, on 6.5.3, the Methven Community Board. So the minutes won't be going up until the next agenda, I presume, but the minutes have been circulated as stated in today's agenda. My recollection at the last meeting was we talked about activity management plan, and we talked about the Methven Community Board had a desire to better understand what the activity management plan is in regards to water in the Methven area.
I've just been informed that this is going to be reported through service, has been reported through service delivery.
So the process my question is around the financial process and where Methven Community Board are actually involved in the discussion prior to us adopting long-term plans. Is there any part of the process where they have a say before we adopt?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I was at the meeting and the comments were regarding lack of clarity around what was in the activity management plans, particularly for water. And when we did the last LTP, the activity management plans were done very early in the process of the LTP, and I can't recall whether there was discussions with the Methven Community Board at that stage, but it would be envisaged in the planning that we're doing for the LTP now that there would be some discussion with the Methven Community Board, at least giving them a heads up very early of what was likely to be in the activity management plans for water and wastewater in particular that affected Methven.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Brake, perfect. That's exactly the answer I'd like to hear, that in future they will be well informed and advised. Thank you. So yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have some questions around reserve boards and memorial hall boards. As I look at the council website, if I was to look at the minutes for reserve boards, it tells me that the last meeting of the Tynwald Reserve Board was the 15th of October 2018. Now, my understanding is the board meets every month. So therefore, if it's not on the website, it's not coming to us, and that therefore would seem that we seem to have a glitch in our process. The other is the Hines Reserve Board, according to the website, hasn't been updated since the 1st of December. So again, the minutes don't seem to be coming through to the council website. And Mount Somers, I've attended a couple of meetings, so I know that February was not the last meeting that they had. And I'm wondering if there is a glitch and if we'll be catching up on all of those meetings at our next FABs.
So just to clarify, is the glitch our end or the other end, or we don't know?
I'm simply raising it's not there.
Okay, thank you.
Through Mr. Chairman, we'll go and investigate that as to see where the glitch is happening and which ones are missing. But there is sometimes quite a delay in the minutes actually getting to us, but we will investigate which ones we've got, which ones we haven't, and make sure that the ones that we have got are up on our website.
Because one does, and shouldn't assume, but one does assume if a reserve board's meeting monthly, the previous month's minutes will be approved at the next month's meeting. So at worst case scenario, we should only be a month behind. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I believe the council are arranging a sole contact person for it. And I'm sure once we get this in operation, it'll make life a lot simpler instead of having to organise through environmental services or finance or service delivery or whatever. They're never quite. These are volunteers, and they find anybody that's had any connection, even us with council, it can be quite complicated with the various departments. And I'm sure when we get a single access point, it'll come a lot simpler.
Thank you, and I totally agree.
That was just supporting that point, because that's exactly what we're finding is they don't know who to send it to, and that is the problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
But, okay. Oh, sorry, I couldn't see that. Councillor Revley.
Yeah, no, just if Councillor Malcolm or Brown know this project that the rugby club are taking on is just taking a leap back 6 years, and the rugby club are going to build that community project out there as a rugby club, not a community sports venue.
So you're talking
in your required minutes, rugby club now formed 6 or 7 years ago. We actually went as far as having an option of seeing whether the council were going to put money into a combined sports pavilion. That's gone. Now we're back to what we were 7 odd years ago, and the rugby club doing it. So is that correct, or?
That is correct. Right, rugby club is doing this. They are welcoming. The other day we had Rachel came out and talked to the reserve board. Rugby club was there, and this week's meeting, and they're welcoming the idea of having a lease, right? at reserves, and it'll tidy things up nicely for the rugby club.
Further to that, Jan Cochrane and a number of our staff, Tony was involved in that when she was still Spittle, involved in many meetings of getting a community sports venue. So has that been curtailed, that patch of work?
That has gone by the board.
Thank you.
I just asked for the staff, has that been noted that that's no longer a venture that's been gone around, many hours have been spent on that?
Through Mr Chairman, it no longer figures in our long-term plan and hasn't for the last one either, I think. Originally, I think it was in our LTP at one stage, but it has now been dropped out.
Thank you. John Acker. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I've had an approach from the rugby club out there, telling me the plans they've got for wanting to demolish the changing rooms that are there now, which has got our toilets in it, and they're building new ones and putting new toilets in, which will be for public use. And they've been to see the CE and discussed it with him, so they're looking at the next stage of them building the club room side of it, showers and what have you, and council contributing to the public toilets. That's their thoughts. So there's some meetings to be had to sort out exactly what does happen, but they've laid it on the table. That's what they would like. So we need to meet at some stage soon and start to firm things up.
So those toilets at somewhere would have been on Mr Askin's replacement list at a certain time schedule somewhere along the way, I assume?
I assume, but possibly not. They're on the domain, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure where they fit.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Chief Executive.
Yeah, through Mr Chairman, we did indeed meet with representatives of the rugby club, and there's some further conversations to have. We did also reflect on the Tourism Infrastructure Fund granting money, which the Rakaia Lions and the council are contributing to the development of other public toilets in Rakaia. So there was some wide-ranging conversations that we did have and need to continue having.
Thank you. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. So as I'm looking at page 29, and as I mentioned, I looked at the council website. I noted that on the 16th of May, Green Street's minutes came in for their reserve board, and they were and it hasn't appeared on this list, and they were talking about the new roof that's been installed, in which they had about $15,000 in materials donated and many, many volunteer hours. And my question is, when we see a new roof, does that get adjusted on our asset register? How do we pick that up? And do we write a letter of congratulations to them? I note that our councillor representative wasn't there that day.
If we're aware that expenditure has gone through our books, i.e. through their books, which is part of our books, then we would capture the new roof and capitalise that, or expense it depending on our view of whether it was capital expenditure or not. We normally have not written a letter of congratulations or whatever to the reserve board. If you want that to happen, we can do. But we haven't in the past, because really from finance all we're looking at is have we captured the financial effect of the transaction.
I can write a letter of congratulations, happy to do that, but the problem is it didn't come through on the summary, so had I not gone to look at the website I wouldn't have actually known that they'd come in. And earlier at the start of the meeting I was asking about the surveys, the reserve board surveys. I'm wondering when they'll be coming in.
Sarah.
Through you, Mr Chair. We have received the survey results. We got submissions from 10 of the reserve boards, and they included Methven, Pendarvis, Mount Somers, Rakaia, Dorrie, Tynwald, Mayfield, Seafield, Ruapuna and Alfred Forest. So those are the 10 that completed the survey. We have a report that has been to the LT, and I'd be happy to share it with elected members via email so that you can see a high-level summary of the results and their answers to the questions within that survey, if that is what you would like.
Through you, Mr Chairman, yes, that would be much appreciated. I guess the real question will become, what will the actions be? I heard Councillor Wilson talk about a single point of contact, and that process is being taken, but perhaps the recommendations to council and to the community would be useful.
Okay. And just for the Mayor's information, those minutes from Green Street were also in the last agenda of FABs. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So,
Mr.
Mr
Bragg.
Chairman, the findings of that survey have actually been passed on to the various managers for their consideration to take on board those comments and what they can do to help address the concerns that have been raised.
Were there any constant themes?
There were some constant themes and also some interesting information and quite surprising information as well, because we asked them to provide us their thoughts on their sort of long-term strategy and also intentions, and also how they rated their ability to perform their role. So yeah, it was a useful result, and it's helped us format and create a role that will be the point of contact within council. So that's the process, and that's why we wanted this information to start with.
Thank you, and I look forward to seeing that view you form once you've received all that information and got your replies from your managers, because with elections coming up, could be quite important timing for the reserve boards themselves to make sure councillors understand what they do as well. So.
Yes, so in providing you with the report,
Yes.
it will give you the summary information,
Yep.
and the actions will be undertaken by management.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, and I just want to tie in a conversation we had earlier today at Policy and Bylaw in regards to the 1977 Reserve Management Act. And it stated in there that we had 25 years to get reserve management plans in place. And what I heard from Mr Mayborn was 7 of the 16 had been done. I'm just wondering what the long-term vision is for doing the rest. And some of them are actually quite old now, some of the 7 that we have done, what the process is for refreshing.
I also was at Bylaw and Policy, and Mr Mayborn informed a sort of more broad brush approach that multiple reserves management plans will be joined together, and I suspect that that will be on strategy and policies workload going forward, but it won't be per reserve, it'll be per type of reserve.
Mm. Yes, he did indicate there could be one policy for X number of reserves rather than doing 16 individual ones, but yeah.
You're absolutely right. I guess my question is when, because on my calculations we're currently at 52 years since 77 as opposed to 25.
I'm not sure anyone can answer that right now. No. Okay, yep.
Now
Mr.
that
Bragg.
we will slot it into the work program, it's just a matter of sorting out the priority of that work.
Okay, if there's no further questions, we will close this open part of the meeting and we'll come back at 3 o'clock for our in-committee stage. Thank you.